Hello and welcome to another CSS tutorial. In this one we're going to be looking at how we go about embedding using embedded CSS and why do we use it. So in the previous tutorial I shared with you we use inline CSS just so that we can apply the CSS properties to one particular element. So we just write the property right at the element level, and this is the highest level that you can give to an HTML element or a tag as CSS properties. And I'm going to share with you in this example how this priority thing works. So let me come up here in the head portion, because when we work with embedded CSS, the embedded CSS is at page level versus the inline CSS is at the tag level. So when you do things at the page level, we do it in the head. So we have the special tag that we use called style. So we introduce the style tag in which we write all the CSS properties that are to affect the page. So here, if I want all my H1 elements to be in italics, so I can basically say I want font style to be italic. So now notice, after I refresh my page, here's the output. Both headings, home page as well as Saad Yusuf, they're both in italics. So what happened was that the H1, any H1 that is found on this page will going to be in italics, and it doesn't matter where it is. Now let me show you one more property here, that if you notice the syntax that I've used here, before I introduce you to the properties, let me also introduce you to some of the things that we do here. If you notice the syntax here, when we were writing inline CSS, we wrote inline CSS right on the tag. So HTML the browser pretty much knew that these properties belong to this tag. But here, when we are out here in the head, it doesn't really know which tag the properties are to be applied to. So we need to first write the name of the tag. Then we write the opening curly braces, and then we write the closing curly braces, and we list all the properties within the opening and closing curly braces. Now the syntax for the properties is exactly the same as I shared with you earlier on. A property name, colon, value, semicolon. Now notice I left a space here to leave a space on the other side. That's okay. That's okay. Now notice my writing style is spread out my curly braces like this. That's okay. It doesn't complain about it. As long as you follow the syntax, we're not going to complain about it. So now let me introduce another property here. I want to use color red. Now notice I already have a color green for one of my headings. So now I want my headings to be in a red color. So when I now refresh my page, notice only the Saad Yusuf is red, homepage stays in green. The reason is, this is where the priorities comes in. The inline CSS has the highest priority. So if a tag has an inline CSS and the same property comes from an embedded CSS, then the inline will going to take the precedence. Since for the other H1, which is Saad Yusuf, there was no inline property whatsoever, therefore the embedded automatically took charge. Font style, there was nobody to challenge font style in the home page H1, so that's why it was in effect right away. So those are the kind of things that we have to look at as to, okay, what comes into effect and where it comes into effect and how it comes into effect. And also, if I come up here and say, okay, I want all my paragraphs, okay, to have a font weight of bold. That means I want them to be bold. So that's why, as I just introduced to you, the idea that in CSS we can change a text to italic. So you don't even have to use an I tag. Or I can change things to bold by using font weight property bold. If I want all my paragraphs to be bold and I'm not using CSS, I would have to go through each and every paragraph on my page and make it bold manually by starting a B, closing a B. Now with this, I can just write it once and I can bold all the paragraphs on the page. Or if I take this to an external style sheet, I can pretty much change all paragraphs on my entire site to a bold. And if ever I want to unbold it, I can go to that one place and say, okay, take this property out, and I'm going to be unbold. So it adds so much flexibility and control. Now notice, as I added this property over here, now I come here and I say, okay, refresh. Now notice my paragraph is now in bold. So sometimes what we do is when we are testing, sometimes we enable or disable properties. In order to do that, you need to know how to comment. So when you comment something, it doesn't show up in the browser. It's only for the user behind the scene. So if I want to comment this property, I can comment in CSS different from HTML. So you start your commenting with a slash and an asterisk, and you close your commenting with an asterisk and a slash. Now notice it's a comment now. That means the paragraph will not going to have this in effect. Let me spread it out so that you could see how this will going to actually look like. So here is the paragraph being bold. So as I have made this change, I save these changes and I refresh, it's unbold now. Because this property is now a comment. It doesn't go in effect. So that's another thing that you can do with a page level CSS, also called an embedded CSS. We'll catch you in the next tutorial where we talk about the external CSS. Thank you for watching.